Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Suburban Rifleman. I tested my new Garmin C1 Pro radar chronograph the other night using my AR-10, and I was chronographing German surplus 1960s vintage Dynamit Nobel 7.62 by 51 NATO ammo. And I was very impressed with the performance of the Garmin, and I was equally impressed with the consistency of that 60-year-old surplus ammo. It did really, really well. So I know that the Garmin Xero C1 Pro radar chronograph had no trouble tracking those 30 caliber 147 grain bullets at around 2,650 feet per second, something like that. But I thought today I would like to try tracking some bullets that are a little bit lighter weight and considerably smaller. Well, actually, they're a lot lighter weight and they're considerably smaller in diameter. So I've got, as you've probably already realized, a 22 here. And this is my Mossberg 44 US. This is not one of the surplus military versions that the CMP sold off several years ago. I'm actually only the second owner of this rifle. And this is it's certainly the most accurate rimfire rifle I've ever owned. And it may very well be the most accurate rifle I've ever owned, full stop. As I said, I'm only the second owner of this rifle. The guy who gave it to me, a good friend of my dad's, bought this brand new when he was 12 years old. And he used it for competition for a great many years. He used it initially for standard sort of NRA style rimfire shooting, probably prone, kneeling, and sitting. And then later on he used it for other types of competition. I think he was like doing free rifle or something. He was a talented machinist. He made that friction fit barrel weight that's up front there. I don't really need that, but it's cool and it's part of the rifle's history. And he inlet an aluminum plate in the bottom of the stock here with 3 threaded holes, and he made this fancy T-handle for holding the rifle. I've got that somewhere. I have no idea. It's somewhere in my house, but I have never used it. And for those of you who are wondering, this did have that very finely adjustable micrometer rear target sight, really beautifully manufactured. I took it off so I could put this scope on because I was doing some long-range rimfire shooting with this a few years ago. I still have the micrometer sight. It's very carefully stored and labeled. It will eventually go back on the rifle. And I can talk at great length about this rifle if anybody's interested in a future video. So go ahead and comment down below. The ammo I'm testing today is not match ammo. This is your standard 550 round Federal bulk pack brick ammo. 22 long rifle, high velocity, 36 grain bullet. They're copper washed bullets, hollow points. This stuff was cheap. I was buying these, and I have a bunch of these bricks. I bought them in 1999 when everybody was freaking out about Y2K. Every time I went to Walmart, I bought a brick of this stuff. So I don't know how many rounds I have of this at home. These were $9 a brick back in 1999. I know they cost quite a bit more than that, but this isn't considered particularly high-end ammo. But I have shot so much stuff with this. This is really my go-to round. And although it's not subsonic and this is not match ammo, it's been remarkably accurate and remarkably consistent. I oftentimes do shoot Ely Club or some other type of high-end target ammo through this rifle when I want really precision accuracy, but this stuff is really amazingly accurate for what it is, and I am really interested to see how consistent it is shooting it over the chronograph. I also want to see how the Garmin Xero tracks a slow-moving small bullet like a 22 long rifle bullet. These are 36 grain bullets. The manufacturer is giving a velocity at the muzzle of 1,280 feet per second. Now, SAMI specs dictate a 24-inch barrel for velocity testing. This is actually a 26-inch barrel, so I'm interested to see if we get something that's a little bit faster or maybe a little bit slower, or maybe it won't even be close to this at all. But 1280 is what they're claiming, and we're going to see what it'll do. I've probably talked enough. If anybody wants to know about this setup, I'd be happy to do a video about that in the future. But we're here to do some chronograph testing. And I used to shoot this rifle in sort of informal competitions with my friends. We would take clear packing tape and tape a row of bottle caps to 2x4 and shoot at them at 50 yards. And some of those competitions were pretty tough to score because there weren't too many bottle caps that didn't have holes in them. I've got a standard paper target set up at 50 yards. I haven't shot this rifle in a while. I'm not sure where it's sighted in at exactly, but this is a 7-round magazine. So I'm going to fire 2 7-round groups. The chronograph's already set up. We'll see what kind of accuracy we get down there. And if it looks like it's shooting pretty close, this scope does have a mil-dot reticle in it. So I'm going to try and see if I can hit any of those gongs at 200 yards. That's a long poke for 22 long rifle, but I've made longer shots than that. So let's get to it. This rifle has an absolutely amazing trigger. And the guy that gave it to me, not given to flights of fancy or bouts of hyperbole, he's a real straight shooter. He told me he estimated at the time he gave it to me that the barrel had about 20,000 rounds through it at that point, but it still shoots amazingly well. At least it was the last time I shot it. We'll see how I do now. Here we go. And the target velocity again, according to the manufacturer, is 1,280 feet per second. $1334.5. That's quite a bit faster than the advertised velocity. And it is right on. And the trigger on this rifle is not measured in pounds, but ounces. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the trigger weight is on this, but it's very, very light and very, very clean. That was 1,211.7. And I noticed a drop on the target, so that might have something to do with it. $12.8. That's pretty close to the last shot, but the extreme spread is going to be pretty big, like 100 feet per second. $12.30.3. That first shot was by far the fastest. Now, I had just cleaned the barrel. There was absolutely no fouling in there. That could account for the higher velocity. $12.46.0. $11.90.3. And that one was a little bit higher. This should be the last one for that group. 12.18.8. I am not going to start a different session. We're just going to shoot however many rounds we shoot, and we'll take the average off the larger session size, because if I break this down, I'll get less accurate results. $12.01.4. That went into the same hole. 1200.4, so only a 1 foot per second difference. The rifle's definitely seems to be settling down a little bit here. $1258.7. $1203.3. Looks like we've got 3 shots left. $1215.9. So the standard deviation's not going to be off by much, but that first shot really kind of threw off the extreme spread, I would say. But that's why this is bargain basement ammo. That's 13. This should be the last shot. 1219.0. So this stuff overall is pretty consistent, except for that first shot that was 1300 and something. So I'm going to go retrieve that target, and then it looks like I'm getting pretty good accuracy. I'm going to see if I can walk my way onto the target at 200 yards and see if I can get a clang out of any of those steel plates. So that was my first group at 50 yards. It's just a little bit over an inch. And group 2 is pretty much the same. So not Olympic grade accuracy. I may have actually misspoken when I said this was maybe the most accurate rifle I own, because I think I do own a couple others that would outdo that, but they're not 80-year-old 22s with at least 20,000 rounds through them. So let's try seeing if I can walk onto some steel at 200 yards. All right, so we've started a new session for 200 yards. This might be a little bit of wishful thinking, but what the hell, we're out here, why not try it anyway? I have to crank this way up to get on out there at 200 yards. All right, I'm going to give it... Oh, I got to adjust my parallax. Go out to 200. And I'm going to give it 2 mils at 200. $1216.5. I think I actually hit the plate, although I can't see it move at that range. I didn't see any splash in the dirt. I'm going to try shooting at a smaller, 1208.4. I'm going to try shooting at a smaller plate. Might give me a better view of what I'm hitting or missing. $1241.5. I think I'm still shooting under. I'm going to give it another mil. Wow, still shooting under. 22 long rifle has a crazy arcing trajectory out at these ranges. I'm going to give it 4 mils. Hit it that time. 1208.7. I'm all the way down on the 4th dot, just above where the crosshair narrows. Let me see if I can hit that plate again. Yep. That's good to know. Not sure if I hit the plate that time or not. 1250.6. Let's try another 7 rounds. 22 is cheap. And this 22 was bought and paid for 25 years ago, so. And I can't even imagine how much 22. I should shoot more 22. I've got to have thousands of rounds of this stuff left. And I'm consistently hitting steel at 200 yards with it, so that's not too shabby. Try this again. Okay, that's a little under. Oh, 1177.5. That might be why it was so low. Chronograph can really tell you stuff. How about that? But that was low also, and that was 1221.1. So I'm going to split the difference between that bottom dot and the taper on the crosshair. It's dead on left to right, though. I don't know where that one hit. Pretty sure it wasn't the plate. Just under. 1159.2. So that one was a little bit slower. Very interesting correlating the data from this with the shots I'm making. Starting to see why normal people have chronographs. I just bought it because I'm interested in how consistent ammo is. All right, let's try this. Running out of grip space here. And that was a little high, 1246.8. Any little variation in velocity at these kind of ranges, though, I think really makes a big difference. I hit that plate like 3 times in a row and I got cocky. 1240.6. There's the plate. 1205.5. Some of you guys might be getting tired of watching me shoot. You can always skip ahead until you see the chronograph on the screen. I'll show the session results. But I kind of feel like shooting at least 1 or 2 more mags. This is fun. Just out of curiosity, are these 22s warming up? This barrel's still cold. Wonderful thing about big, heavy barrels. $1235.6. Here's steel. The plate only just barely moves when you hit it with this. 1240.6. That plate's barely moving. I think I need to go back to the smaller one. Oh, that one rings. Let's try shooting that one some more. Oh, that must be a different alloy of steel. $1246.6. All right, I know which plate to shoot with 22 from now on. That should be the last one. I'm having too much fun. I got a 21 shot string already, but let's bump it up to 28. 1235.8 if I didn't say. $1216.5. That one was a little bit low. Hit it. 1180.8. $1195.8. Yeah, I like this gong. This is my gong. Not that shot, it wasn't. 1257.6. $1239.2. That was a little right, I think. There it is. 1212.8. And it again, 1207.8. So that's 28 shots. That's kind of a weird number. 35 sounds better. I promise that'll be the last mag. Last magazine. I got stuff I need to do tonight. Let's see if we can hit it every shot out of these last 7 rounds. Nope. 1217.6. Yep. 1 out of 2. 1194.2. Two out of 3. 1210.1. Two out of 4. Three out of 5. 1206.0. Three out of 6, I guess. Let's see if I can do better than half. This is the last shot of the night. Nope. 3 out of 7. But still, with a 22 long rifle using bargain basement bulk pack ammo at 200 yards, I don't think that's too bad. Let's look at our chronograph results, because that's what we were really here for in the first place. So our first session, which was 14 shots at the paper targets, we had a minimum of 1190.3, an average of 1224.2, max of 1334.5, an extreme spread of 144.2, which is not good, and a standard deviation of 35.6. Average kinetic energy of 119.9 foot-pounds. Second session, which was 35 shots, minimum of 1159.2, average of 1221.1, max 125 or 1257.6, extreme spread of 98.3. So that was a little bit better, but still pretty big. And a standard deviation of 22.8. Average kinetic energy almost exactly the same as the first group. So So there you have it. I mean, there's a reason this stuff was cheap and sold in bulk. It's not the most consistent thing in the world. But through this rifle, with this cheap Tasco scope, I was able to score like 50% hits at 200 yards on steel once I figured out my elevation. So, all in all, this is a really good ammo. More importantly than its consistency and its accuracy, this is the stuff that I found which most consistently cycles semi-automatic 22s. This stuff works great in semi-auto pistols, semi-auto rifles. At 50 yards, I mean, we got pretty decent accuracy. This is 2 minutes of angle. You're not going to win any competitions with this, but you can certainly take out some squirrels. All in all, I love this ammo. The Garmin performed admirably. It had no trouble reading these little tiny bullets at relatively low velocities. So, time to move on to the next type of ammo. And when I do that, I hope to see each of you then. Later, guys.